Welcome to the Living Ageless and Bold podcast. Each episode, I bring you amazing women who inspire, educate, and share their experiences and journeys along the way. So grab a glass of wine or a cup of coffee, find a cozy spot, and let's relax and have some fun hearing what can be accomplished after 55. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Living Ageless and Bold. Imagine losing the love of your life after nearly 4 decades together, and then deciding not just to survive it, but to embrace the unknown, rediscover joy, and even laugh again. And that's exactly what Patti Theil did. After losing her husband, Dave, to pancreatic cancer, she found herself facing a world she hadn't navigated in decades: grief, reinvention, dating again, and learning how to stand on her own 2 feet. So she wrote the book, Losing My Widow Virginity, which I just finished, and it's raw and it's funny and it's this deeply human memoir about love, loss, and stepping into your quote unquote new tomorrow. So Patti, I'm so glad to have you here.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And you probably saw I was almost tearing up with your introduction. Thank you so much.
I'm sorry. First of all, I'm so sorry that you lost your husband and the way it happened. And your book hit me really hard because I'm going through a cancer situation with my husband, and we've been together almost 30 years. So I kept having to put it down because I just got really emotional. So I'm sorry you and your family had to go through it.
Well, unless you and your spouse die at the exact same time, we are all going to be experiencing this. I mean, no one lives forever. So, I wrote this book to help others so that they would be better prepared when this happens to them. And it is going to happen to them.
I know. I keep telling my kids, I'm doing The Notebook. Something happens to Dad, if you've seen The Notebook, at the end they die together, which of course is not going to happen. But you're right. And it's so admirable. Like everything, first of all, that you wrote about being so raw and honest. And I want to talk about everything. But it's very inspiring that you got out of bed and dated a little, that you figured out how to get back, and you're very honest about.
I don't hold back.
Yeah.
I don't hold back, Fortunately, I've come a long way from those early days of numbness and fear and just sadness. There were days I didn't really want to even get out of bed. But fortunately, at the time, I had a dog who, they got to go out. So you got to get
that dog's got to eat.
Yeah. And they need to be walked. And that's one of the most important things. You have to get out of your house because it's so easy to just want to stay in your own little cocoon.
So let's tell people a little bit about your story because, and we've heard this about pancreatic cancer. It's pretty quick but the irony in all of this is your husband's a doctor.
Yes.
Or was a doctor.
Yeah. And
so tell people your story about how you found out.
So my husband was a doctor, anesthesiologist, had been an internist before that even, but he was an avid mountaineer. And he and our kids actually had a trek planned in Pakistan. And he just didn't feel as strong as he thought he should be. So, being a doctor, he knew the radiology department, and he just marches in and says, "Hey, I need a chest x-ray. I got to make sure my pneumonia is not coming back." And it wasn't, but the radiologist found a tiny, enlarged pancreatic duct. So he had stage 1 pancreatic cancer, and it was found early. Most people don't find it till you're stage 4. So he had a new protocol, chemo, radiation, surgery followed up by more chemo, all wrapped up in less than a year. And he lived 2 years cancer free. He did have a Whipple, which that's an awful surgery. That's where they take out they took out part of his pancreas, all of his gallbladder, part of his stomach, intestines. And then, as I used to joke, and then they put Humpty Dumpty back together again. But that was a tough surgery. And he had told me, whenever he was serious or mad at me, he'd call me Pat instead of Patty. And he'd be like, Pat, if this comes back, it's going to come back with a vengeance. And it did. When it came back, in the last quarter of 2021, it was everywhere. I mean, we think it was his brain, his stomach, all his intestines and all those organs. And, it was quick.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I wanted to talk about, because I read it in your book, and that same thing happened to us. I lost my brother-in-law a year ago, March, to a glioblastoma.
Oh yeah. That's the other not so good cancer.
No. I mean,
and I'm sorry about that.
No, it was, so I know the gut punch, but the thing that they did to us that happened to you, and it makes me so mad, is they give you a time limit. So they said to us, oh, you'll be lucky if you have 12 to 15 months. My sister and I was my sister's husband, and we're like, what? Well, guess what? He lived for 3 years and 6 weeks. So I tell people every time they get these diagnoses, don't listen to the doctors. Like it's almost like they're mean. I mean, I know they have to be realistic, and yours was pretty, like I said, when I read it, I just started crying. It was like that you had to, on top of everything, that you have to go through that.
Right. My husband as a doctor, would always remind me, remember, medicine is an inexact science. They don't know an exact date that you're going to die. They just have to ballpark things. And just remember, it's an inexact science. They do the best that they can. But my husband really worked at, he had a true gift for telling people, what was happening medically. Because oftentimes you'll get a doctor who will talk above you, and, you're left with all these terms and you're like, what does that mean? But he had a gift for really explaining it. He never sugarcoated it, but he always talked to his patients, and that included neighbors. He was like the neighborhood doc, come and sew somebody up on Thanksgiving or whatever. But he would, he truly had that gift that he didn't sugarcoat it. He talked to the patient with respect, and empathy. But he talked in terms that you could understand. And that truly was a gift. And I got to admit, I miss that because, things are still happening, with people and me, with a finger surgery or whatever. And I miss not having him to talk with, and not just medically, but life, just to run an idea by. You don't know how much you love somebody until they aren't here.
My sister says that so often. She's like, Jerry, she just wants to pick up the phone and tell him something that happened or something she experienced. And she said that's been the hardest part.
Well, sometimes I do call him up. We still have his phone active, and I do call him up sometimes. And even when I finished my book and I had it in my hand, he used to joke with me and say, can you finish a project before you start another one? And so I got my book and I was like, look, Dave, I finished this project and you're not even here to appreciate it.
But he is. Tell the story about the lights flickering, because we had the exact same thing. Like, I'm reading your book and I was like, wow, the exact same thing happened to us.
So I've actually had several, divine things happen. And one was just lately, right after our dog passed. But in the book, first of all, I had heard from his mom the day before he died. And she came to me in a vision and she said,
wait, was his mother had passed?
Yes, she died in 95. So she's been gone, decades. I heard her and she said, I'm here. I can't wait to see Dave. And what is taking so long in her voice? And it was crazy because I turned to Dave and he was awake. And I said, your mom just came to me in a vision. And this is what she said. And I know you're going to heaven. And I also have feelings of jealousy. Like this is going to be this fabulous reunion. And he and his mom were really, really tight. And he joked and goes, oh, I guess we'll see. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then he passed the next day. And then the morning afterwards, you wake up and my husband was on call a lot. So it's not like I hadn't woken up without him over our marriage, but he wasn't there. And this time he was definitely gone. And I took a little bit to get my feet on the ground and go into the bathroom. And I flipped the switch and all of a sudden the lights just start flickering. And that annoying flickering that happens sometimes. And you're like, go on or go off. And I'm like talking out loud. And all of a sudden it dawns on me that it's Dave. And I go, Dave, if that's you, I know you made it and I'll love you forever. And every single bulb in that light bulb or that fixture popped. And I mean, I can't explain that. They all popped.
We had something very similar right after Jeremy passed. And my sister was like, oh my God, he's everywhere. Like the lights it was crazy. And that had never happened. I mean, she'd been in that house for 20 years. None of those lights have flickered like that. So,
well, recently, we lost our dog, Sadie, and, she died outside. It was a gorgeous day. We all were playing cards so the vet could come and, she passed. And then the next night I wanted to go take a walk just to be normal. As a widow, that's the biggest thing. You just want your old normal back. So I said, I'm just going to take a walk down the street like I was walking her before I went to bed. And I go out on the driveway and all of a sudden it's brighter than it's ever been. And I'm like, these landscaping lights haven't been on for like 3 years and they are on now. And I'm thinking, this is really crazy, but I think this is Dave telling me they're together again. And so my son had been home that night for doing fantasy football picks, and he had been in our basement. And I went downstairs and I go, hey, could you come out? And just the lights, I think I got a question. And he goes, I knew you were going to come down here. I knew you were going to come down here and talk about the lights. And I go, whoa, what's going on? And he goes, well, I was doing my fantasy picks and that light in the corner starts flickering and it's going on and off. And look, this is not a loose light bulb. And I'm like, this is your dad telling us he's with Sadie. I believe if you talk to God and you're open to hearing and listening, you'll get those messages. And it's really reconnected me and strengthened my faith. And there is life after what we are in right now.
Yeah. So one of the things that I appreciated in your book, and because again, until you're there, you don't know how you would handle it, but you've been so good about reconnecting with friends and, finding sorority sisters who were in similar circumstance. Your one friend who lost her husband or divorced, and you travel with your girlfriends and wow, because again, peeling yourself up off the ground and,
Yeah.
and living your life. You're doing fun things with people. But how hard was that? Or do you just have to make a decision? Like I've got to move forward.
That's a good question. And I really pulled on Amit Sood. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's a doctor out of the Mayo Clinic, but he's really specialized in gratitude. And he worked with my husband initially, and then I checked in with him. And the same philosophy. I cannot control that I'm a widow. I can't control that Dave got cancer. But what I can control is my actions and my attitude. And I don't want to be a sourpuss. I don't want to be the person that you don't invite to a party because I'm feeling sorry for myself. I want to be happy. I want to find joy. And that is what you also have to do. You got to be proactive. I try to be proactive with Valentine's Day. And actually, right after, the year after Dave died, we had the 14th, 15th, and 16th. 14th was first Mother's Day. 15th was his first birthday. And the 16th was the first anniversary of his passing. So I had like the trilogy. And I knew I had to be proactive, and I planned, my son really helped bring up a bunch of his friends who weren't going to be able to see their moms. And we had a big cookout. And then I had a really dear friend. We spent the day together on his birthday. And then on the anniversary of his passing, I had a girlfriend arrange for a big dinner of girlfriends. And I really had to make an effort, but it was my choice. I could choose to just stay home and eat ice cream and binge watch something, or I could be proactive and get out. And that's the one thing I say to widows is get out of your house. Take a walk, meet a friend for coffee, meet a friend for lunch, meet a friend for dinner, maybe do all three in one single day, if that's what it takes. Because it was hard walking around and seeing my husband's stuff. And, I talk about the closet when one day I just looked at it and I couldn't look at it anymore. And I just started yanking stuff out, and I could have been throwing it out a window, but, it gradually made its way downstairs and then out of the house. But it's a process, but you got to be proactive. How's your sister doing? Is she is she doing any group therapy or,
No, she has an incredible friend network, very similar to what you have. I keep thinking, oh my gosh, I feel like I have a lot of friends, but not like that. So they just all have rallied around her, and it's been amazing. She's never alone. If she doesn't want it, she's got lots to do, and she has a dog, which keeps her busy. So good. It's been a year and a half. So, but much better than it was. So I wanted to ask you, because I've seen with friends like that divorce, and then, all of a sudden the single woman is a threat, to their husbands. And did you have any of that where people kind of pulled back because now you weren't part of a couple?
Well, I did find that, yes, there were people who had parties and I know I wasn't invited. And actually what you just brought up, I had no idea that was even a possibility, that I could be a threat. I was like, holy cow. And I was talking to some other friends, and I go, I think they've pulled back because they don't know what to say to me, or they've pulled back because I represent possibility of them losing their husband. And one girl goes, are you crazy? they think, you're single and, their husband might be attracted to you. And I'm like, oh, I really hadn't ever thought that was a possibility. I guess that's just not, really who I am.
Yeah. But I've heard that.
Yeah.
So
I had not heard that, but I guess it is a real thing.
So let's talk about dating again, because I can't think of anything more frightening than, especially, again, it's one thing if you divorce, like you decide, all right, we're divorcing. This is my choice, but this wasn't your choice. And you were with someone for 40 years. So how do you even think about that again?
Well, it all started actually. My daughter is the one who said, because initially I was just looking for a companion, somebody I could do things with. And my daughter says, well, Mom, maybe you need to look at somebody who didn't know Dad. And well, the only way that could happen is online dating. So again, I think the next morning, I look on Facebook and it says, join eHarmony for free. Oh. It's a sign, right?
So, Dave wanted you getting out there.
Yeah. So I do, sign up for it. And I was shortly after that going to Cabo, and my girlfriends there, we sat poolside and they helped me write my profile. And I, uploaded that and then, some pictures. And then finally I started getting some interactions. But if you join for free, you don't get their pictures. They get you, but you don't get their pictures. So I'm finally, a month or so has passed and I'm on a trip with girlfriends in New York. And one of them goes, Patti, just pay the fee. So I paid the fee and we sat there and looked at pictures. And one of the funniest pictures, and I had a guy do the illustration, was Ryan Stolp, was a guy with a timestamp. You know how on your phone, it has this time on it. And this man across his forehead has that date on his profile picture. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, somebody help this man. He wants to meet somebody, but somebody needs to give him a little help to present himself better. And so my girlfriend and we laughed at that, but I was empathetic, like somebody help him, so he's a better available candidate. And we scrolled through, and my initial contact was a fellow who had rafting pictures and skiing pictures because I wanted somebody to do those things with me. And, I reached out and, I did it blindly. And then later, after some setbacks, I used to call it chutes and ladders. You know how that childhood game, you're almost to the end and woo, you get sent to the back. And for me, that was like, okay, next. And I really do think it'd be funny if there was a dating app called Next.
I thought that was so funny. Yeah.
Because, I just like, okay, well, I got to try it again and take that step forward. Just like getting out of your house, you have to make that step. But I do tell people now, don't do it blindly like I did. Again, one of the reasons I wrote this book is to help other people. Is there are so many podcasts like you do about online dating, about unavailable men, and I'm sure there's unavailable women. But once my girlfriend said, well, haven't you ever read about this or listened to this? I'm like, what? What are you talking about?
I would not have known that either. I read it in your book. I was like, oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's stuff like that I can look at. And she's like, oh, yeah. And she gave me like one person's name. And the next thing you know, I've sat online for 8 hours listening, and I'm a sponge going, did that wrong? Oh, yeah, maybe that's why you did that wrong, did that wrong. And so it was all about learning. But yeah, you can definitely learn, and even if it's just about how you should have an attitude of, look, this is how I looked at it. It's like a business decision. It's not necessarily personal, though it feels personal. It's really a business decision. That person is looking at you, could they spend the rest of their life with you, or could they just go out with you, or would they want to have sex with you? It's kind of a business decision. And once I changed my attitude and thought it's not really personal, I was able to move forward much better and had more fun with it. And I appreciate every single person I met and what I learned from them.
That's great. And how about now? Are you dating anyone?
I have had someone unexpectedly come back into my life, but that might be book 2 topic.
Okay. I actually interviewed somebody called Dating While Gray. It was more about, for her, it was divorce, but she talks about the boomerang romance, and she's all in favor of going back to reunions and reconnecting with the people you grew up with, because you have a history of. And I just wrote an article about this. I went to my 40th reunion, and all your firsts, like these are the people you experienced, your first real best friend, your first love, your first heartache, your first, attempt at adulthood.
Right.
So those people know you like nobody ever, your foundation.
That's true. And, you were talking about first, I gave my book a racy title, and it's true. I turned to the guy and go, I think I just lost my widow virginity. And we all laughed about that. But the book is much more than just that happening. It's about all the first that I had to deal with. So it's more than just the first time I had sex. It's the first Valentine's Day. It's the first person who gets married when there's no dad. It's a lot about my first, but there is comfort in going back. And, I had an Aunt Marge. She was very much a mentor to me, and she never had, her own kids. And she told me she was 70 and went back to like a 50th college reunion, and people were reconnecting. And after that, she was an organist. After that, she was invited to play as an organist for 2 people's weddings after reconnecting at that reunion. So there is comfort in knowing that their history, because it is hard, one of the things I liked about Adam was he was from Indiana, and had been to my university, and there was comfort in knowing I knew people who knew him from those days. So there's comfort in that.
And we'll tell people, you talk about Adam in the book. So that was one of the.
Yes. And obviously that's not his real name. I kind of picked Adam and Eve. I thought I had to start somewhere.
That's so funny. Yeah. The names were changed to protect those. Yeah.
All those. Yes. I, like I said, I learned from everything I talk about in the book. I learned more about me. And so, I don't want any ill will with anyone in regard to my book.
Well, and I think at this age too, like it's so different. You're not 15. You're not, oh, this is, my first love, the one I'm going to marry, that, forever and ever. It's you've been through life, and we know that sometimes, friendships fall apart, relationships fall, it just doesn't work. It might be you, it might be him. I don't know. I just feel like maybe it doesn't sting to the level of losing your husband of 40 years. I mean, that's right. You're still here after that.
I mean, face it. It's like, I'll tell you a little story. After I had 2 kids, I had appendicitis, and it wasn't showing normally. And they go, can we try a vaginal probe to look? And they go, oh my God, this is textbook. Can we bring in all the radiologists and residents? And, next thing you know, I got 14 people with a probe up me. And it's that same concept that you reach a point where you don't care about that trivia and that triteness as much anymore. But, you referenced being 14 again. I said, online dating, I felt 12 again, like I was in that first 7th grade makeout party, and you're all of a sudden experiencing, oh, I got a kiss, or, French kissed me. It's this reawakening again, because you've not that you numbed down, but in many ways, when my husband would leave, it would be an obligatory kiss before he left. He was obligated to say goodbye. It wasn't that passionate first kiss that we used to have. And when you start dating again, it's like, whoa, I'm 12 and ready to jump up and down on a couch again. It's exciting to have that. And again, maintain your positive attitude, and remember, next if necessary.
Right. Oh, tell people where they can find your book, because I know there's a lot of people out there who can either need it themselves or will share it with friends and loved ones.
And the book is not just for widows. I relate a lot to divorcees and picking up the pieces again. And that was my biggest epiphany after I lost my husband, that I hadn't been as available for my divorced friends, because they experience loss too. My book is for anybody looking to reinvent themselves. It's kind of like that. Remember that. And it's also a self-help book. Remember the What to Expect When You're Expecting book? Right. Well, this is the What to Expect When You Lose Your Spouse book. And it can even be for middle-aged people who have older parents still alive, right, so that they have some things they can talk to their parents about to make sure that they check these boxes, so it's easier for them. I mean, the self-help, the insight I share, just about be careful who you call when you do a Google search. I mean, I called McAfee.
I know. I wish we had time. That's a whole nother story that we can talk about. Being
you can always have me back.
Yes. No. But, I know.
You can get my book on Amazon.
Okay. And it'll be in the show notes. And there's a whole chapter at the end all about online scams, and especially when you're distracted and thinking about other things. And you give a lot of great lessons there. So that's something definitely that's great. That's in the book.
Yeah. But Amazon, or you can get a electronic copy off my website, www.pattitheil.com.
Awesome. So everybody, we all know somebody who is going through divorce, is divorced, losing a spouse, lost a spouse. It's a great book. It really is. It just really good tips and just kind of knowing you're not alone. that somebody's walked before you. And Patti, it's such a great book. Thank you for sharing it with the world.
Well, thank you for having me today. I really appreciate it.
It was great to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for listening or for watching this episode of Living Ageless and Bold. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit subscribe. And if you like the episode, I hope that you will give us a great review. You can also head over to livingagelessandbold.com and sign up for information, inspiration, and exclusive opportunities for us, women over 55. Thanks for listening. And remember, no matter what you do, keep living ageless and bold.